Welcome to another episode of Elementality, everybody. I'm your host, Reese Harper, here with my trusty old co-host, Carl Richards.
Greetings, Reese.
You have so many cool nicknames. I'm still trying to figure out which one I like. People call you all kinds of Sherpa and Yoda and St. Carl, and I affectionately started today with the Mountain Goat, the G-O-A-T, the greatest of all time.
I'm going to leave soon if you don't stop.
I like the Mountain Goat. I'm actually really liking this one lately. It's not quite as sophisticated as I think other people are giving you. They're like naming you like Yoda and like a
St. Carl was
St. Carl is Josh Brown.
Josh Brown, yeah.
That's pretty high praise.
It's a little uncomfortable. I
like
like the sentiment it's pointing to, but it's very uncomfortable to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I like the Mountain Goat. To me, that's how I knew you.
What Kids has called us the other day? Kids has called me Bill Murray of financial planning. Like
wow!
The guy that like sneaks around at the conferences and does funny things. Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite shows of all time is What About Bob?
Oh yeah, of course.
And interacting.
Isn't that sailing?
Yeah,
sailing. I'm a sailor.
I sail. Yeah, this is great. You actually, I don't know. I would not have thought of that.
Yeah, me neither.
Shout out to Michael.
I think it was because I showed up at a conference unannounced, and I asked if I could be the mic runner.
Okay, it's just like you showing up at Lake Winnipesaukee.
Yeah, well, apparently he does all sorts of things like that. Like shows up at softball games and is the pitcher.
Oh, like for real?
Yeah, no, for real.
Oh, okay,
he'll go to a wedding and take he'll take the camera from the photographer.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe I could be persuaded. He's one of my favorite actors. So
Anyway.
All right.
Moving on.
Today we have like a pretty exciting topic ahead of us. I'm going to start out with having you tell us an analogy of going into the ER. Elements does a lot of comparisons to the medical industry. Partly just because I think, health and finances are kind of the two biggest stressors in our lives. You were just joking about an analogy prior to this that I think is actually quite effective.
Yeah. No, I mean, this all starts from the idea that, like, no one wakes up with a financial planning problem. Don't. And often we try to, sorry, I can't help you unless we have a financial plan. Like that whole idea, I was just thinking through, like, imagine showing up at the ER with I'm walking after dinner and somebody jumps out of the bushes and a knife in my leg.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible idea, but let's just pretend like it happened, right?
Yeah.
A knife in my leg. That has not ever come close.
A buck knife.
Yeah, a buck knife. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm hunting with a friend, and his knife gets loose and it ends up in my leg.
Yeah.
I show up at the ER, and the ER is like, of course, like, you're pointing at the knife, and they're saying, well, your cholesterol levels, we need to check that first. Like your heart, like how's your diet?
Mm-hmm.
Do you anxiety? Like, do you deal with you're like, no, brother, I just have a knife in my leg. Like, can we get this out? Like, I don't really care what you talk to me about right now.
Yeah.
I don't need a comprehensive blood panel done. I don't need my cholesterol checked by 17 different labs.
Mm-hmm.
I need the knife out of my leg.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing that we need to get a little better at is realizing, like, people have acute problems. No one shows up, and I have to be clear about this because I know the real value you provide is not getting the knife out of the leg. It's not the acute problem. That's not the real value. The real value is the stuff way behind that.
Yeah.
Like, what's the sense of financial purpose? But most people, nobody has ever shown up at a financial advisor's office, ever, as far as I'm aware, ever, and said, hey, I'd like to just cry on your couch for a minute and have you help me clarify my goals. Hey, Reese, could you help me with my statement of financial purpose? It's never happened.
Yeah.
They show up because I sold a business. I need life insurance. My portfolio managed by the joker down the street's terrible. They've got an acute problem. And sometimes we're not good at embracing and empathizing with the acute problem. And then I like to think of using the acute problem as a righteous trick, just an entry point. If I can help solve that acute problem, and then slowly help them understand that it's actually not the thing that matters.
Yeah.
The thing that matters long term is these deeper questions.
And I think you can jump into that deeper topic quite quickly.
Yeah, I think the knife in the leg is probably a terrible example for that. But it could be like you could show up at a chiropractor, right? And like, I can't lift my back at all. Well, the chiropractor's got to treat that. But we all know that that is not the result of something that just happened on accident.
Yeah.
Oh, did you realize you've been sitting on your wallet for 30 years and it's 2
Yeah.
inches thick like George Costanza's and you've got
Yeah.
ketchup in there?
Yeah.
Like now the chiropractor has a way, I got to solve this problem, but I need to enter into this longer term challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really, really insightful and really important to get if you're trying to grow your practice, if you're trying to augment your influence,
Trying to help more people.
you're trying to help more people. And, this is another episode in our series around kind of the industry. And we talked a lot about the blue ocean, the pie that is so, the impact pie, right? That's so big for us to go and just have a little slice of all of these, tens of millions of households that have never had their question answered. I think that's how you get in there. You get into that, but not by selling financial planning, even if that's ultimately what you feel like is part of the solution. You're selling an answer to a question.
Totally.
That's cost effective. It's high pain, and it's fun. I started doing this, a while back when I just walk up to somebody that I knew, and I just said, hey, can I ask you just briefly, like, do you have any financial questions on the top of your mind right now? Things you're like worried about? And I don't think I've ever had anyone not give me one.
Right.
Like I get one every time. I mean,
Right.
it's amazing how many questions like people carry,
Yeah.
and daily, and it changes daily.
Yeah.
And those are the things that get someone to take some action.
Yeah.
And so usually, it's. I told this example last time, just as so recent and top of mind. It's been a fun one to kind of think about. But I was getting my back worked on from wrecking up in the mountains close to your place on my one wheel with my son. I decided to try to climb up PCMR on my one wheel. My son handled it really nicely. I made it all the way to the top, and I'm coming flying down the hill, and I went over like a really steep decline and didn't lean forward enough. I kind of leaned backward. My one wheel just like scooted out, and I kind of got wrecked. And so that's an aside, folks. It doesn't have anything to do with the story.
Yeah.
But I needed to get that off my chest so Carl knew how I wrecked. Anyway, I'm visiting with my PT. She straightened out my back, and I was just like going to practice it there. I'm like, do you have any financial questions that are on the top of your mind? I mean, it was like a lot. Like there was like 10.
Yeah.
And I just grabbed the first one. And the first one was, how much should I put down on my car?
Yeah.
Like I'm about to buy a new car, and I've been waiting for like 4 years, and I just, I don't know how much I should put down.
Yeah.
And that was now I've got, if I would have said like, hey, have you ever thought about like getting a comprehensive financial plan done?
Yeah.
Or hey, have you ever thought of, like, before I asked her the financial question.
Well, the thing too, just about this is the dreaded elevator pitch, which I've been so anti forever. I hate elevator pitches.
Yeah.
Imagine
None of us can actually figure out our elevator pitch anyway. They're
stupid.
They're horrible.
Like terrible. It's tension.
Yeah.
But imagine how easy it is for somebody. What do you do for a living? You're a PT. What do you do for a living? Well, I answer financial questions for a living.
Yeah.
Right? I answer financial questions for. Do you have any?
Yeah.
Boom. My car.
Yeah.
Interesting. Right?
Boom.
Keep going.
Remodel.
Yeah.
Boom. I've got a horse, and I'm thinking about buying a horse like property for myself.
Yeah. Can I afford that? I don't know if I can afford
I've got
it.
some idle cash in the bank. These are like 4 questions that she asked like right in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, this is beautiful prospecting.
Yeah.
Right? You've got the pain exposed. The pain is the question. Now you got a choice. Because if you answer this question right now for that person, you're going to lose them.
Can I just tell a quick story?
Yeah.
This is really important. What Reese is about to talk about is really important. There are 2 things have to happen. One, you have to diagnose correctly. And second, and it's a separate issue, the client has to feel diagnosed correctly.
Yeah.
And this is a little righteous trick. It's a game we play. And the story I want to tell real quickly is I have a friend who, she is Russian, and she's an ER doctor, and the Russian part's important because she says it's important. She said, because I'm Russian, I tend to be more direct than most people. Like that's her description of herself. And she used to tell me this story where she would walk out, she would walk to the window from inside the emergency room where she could see the waiting room. And she used to look across the waiting room at everybody in there. So there's like 17 people sitting in there. And she used to say, she said she could tell almost immediately who were the people that just need ibuprofen and go home. Like she's just like, I could just look and tell. This is after 10 years of pattern recognition. She just knew. And she said she wanted to so badly to just go into the foyer and say, how many of you would like the whole circus, the whole show, the thing where we do the tests and we take you back, versus how many of you would just like to be told to go home and take ibuprofen, if that's the right answer. But she never could do that. And she said that she's had 2 complaints in 10 years. The 2 complaints were not about misdiagnosis. They were about not feel like she wasn't nice enough. She didn't take enough time. The diagnosis was correct. And I think that's really important for us to understand. What you're pointing at is there is some level, you're so good, and I'm pointing to you, financial advisors, right? You're so good at pattern recognition quickly that you may know the answer super fast, but there's a game that's got to be played. And that game is they've got to feel diagnosed.
To add to that, this is an and. I think these are functional and emotional jobs, like I've talked about for a while, and you can't forget that this whole thing is an emotional job. It's not a functional job. Like the answer to the question is actually not that important.
Right.
What's important is that she feels understood and heard, and that she feels like I am actually providing advice that's aligned with her. And the best way to do that, the first thing I did, I said, I can answer that. I think I can answer those questions for you. Before I do that, there's one thing that I want to know just in advance of answering that question, because how I answer it actually is completely dependent on you. And I said, why is money important to you? And I went right into statement of financial purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And I got her to describe, like, my gosh, well, money for me is really like, she says, I said, why is money important to you? She's like, I think it's being able to pay for the things that are kind of like the have-tos, but have some freedom to be more with my horse and my property. Like, I don't have horse property. I've always wanted it. Money to me would be like, I'm meeting my bills, so I'm not worried, and I'm able to be with my horse on this property.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
boom.
Yeah. Now we've got, so now we can go somewhere.
Yeah.
And so now I know that the goal probably for her of pursuing this purpose of hers, I mean, the amount of liquidity that you pay down on a car has a pretty direct impact on what, at this income level, her income level, which I didn't even know yet, to be honest. I hadn't even talked about income. Haven't talked about spending.
Right.
I just knew that there's
Date of retirement.
Yeah. There's some correlation here between giving up cash to have more equity in a car and pursuing some kind of future with horse property and that are not like totally aligned.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up saying, that second thing, I said, okay, I restated her statement of financial purpose back to her. That takes like a minute. Maybe we're a minute in, right? I ask a question, we're 2 minutes in, and I've got statement of financial purpose roughly down. And I just said, now before I answer the question about your car, I said, it's really good now that I know that this, and I stated back her statement of financial purpose, and she kind of like restates it back, and we felt both kind of aligned. And I said, have you ever heard of the concept of liquidity, or like having enough, money to access? That's what we call liquidity. I said, I measure that with a scorecard. And before I told you how much to put down, it'd really be nice for me to know how long you could last right now on your spending, just based on the amount of savings you have piled up and everything. Right. I told her there's a score, and it measures a number of years that you could live on your current liquidity after tax and cash. And I said, if you have like probably a 0.5 score, which is 0.5 years, I said I might answer it a certain way. If you have a 1, it might be another way. If you have a 0.25, I would definitely answer it a different way. I'm like, do you know what, by chance, if you take what you've got, divide it by what you spend, do you know how long you could last, or what your score might be? She of course, she's going to have a hard time doing all that math in her head perfectly, but it piqued her curiosity a lot when I said, the amount of down payment that I would recommend doing probably depended on how much liquidity you have right now. Because I'd want you to be healthy and safe and stable. And I said, the system I look at, generally, the closer someone is to 1, right, on that, 1 year's worth of spending, the less I care about whether they pay down the car faster or not. It's kind of an option, a preference at that point. But if you're well below that, it might I probably would wait. Do you know what your score is? So I'm giving her some general advice. I'm not telling her what to do yet. I'm just instructing her mental model around how to think about the problem. It's more comprehensive in how I'm addressing it.
Yeah.
And then my invitation to her was, hey, I promise to get you an answer before the end of the day. But would you mind if I just had you fill out your scorecard for me? And then I'll send you a quick video just answering your question. And dude, I mean, it's just
Again,
like
the question was the entry point.
The question was the entry point.
Yep.
And
because she didn't wake up in the morning with a financial planning problem.
Yes.
She didn't wake up with an efficiently designed portfolio problem. She didn't wake up with an evidence-based portfolio design problem.
No.
She woke up with a financial question.
Now, I don't know, and it takes some training, right, to use this scorecard to answer the questions.
Sure.
And a financial advisor could learn it in about 30 minutes.
Right. But the point here really is the power of realizing that financial questions are the entry point and using that as a business development tool.
The business development side is kind of what's the most important, I think, not the most important. It's what I wanted to emphasize here is I think we are missing she's now what I would consider a part of the funnel, right? My marketing funnel.
Yep.
Now she's in the top of my funnel. She's actually moved down into the middle of my funnel.
Of course.
Right?
She's filled out a scorecard.
Yeah.
She's answered a rough statement of financial purpose.
Yes.
And this was all in 23 minutes.
And the cool thing is, I remembered that conversation, right? I'm on the massage table, so I'm not able to do much there in terms of typing or entering data.
Yeah.
But I got up, walking out, I invited her in, and by the time I had gotten home, she'd already filled out her net worth statement.
Yeah.
And she'd already filled out most of her scorecard. I was able to just key in about 30 seconds her statement of financial purpose, right? Just so that we had it in our one-page plan.
Which I can already remember. I want the freedom to spend time with my horses.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, now I'm just going to answer that question. And then just think about, there's membership models, there's full-service planning models, there's AUM-based models, there's combinations. There's any number of ways I could engage. But now I've got a chance that I've delivered some there was no advice here. In the traditional sense of regulated advice, I haven't gotten paid. I didn't give her any specific investment advice. Right. I'm just giving some guidance and general financial education around her balance sheet.
Right.
And she's so deep into the funnel, and I've spent 5 cumulative minutes.
Yeah.
But it all started with going with the question first.
Yeah.
You focus on that question, and you use the question to get the person to start understanding how you could answer questions better if you just have good data.
Yeah.
If you just have good data, you can answer questions faster, more efficiently. Yeah. And now every time that question comes up, every question now, you're going to be the person for every question, because not only did you train her to engage from the beginning, but she's going to want to think of you every time a question comes up. Yeah. Every time you're the question, answer, fast, efficient, quick.
Yeah.
It's just really different angle than planning. Financial, think about the things that would not be interesting. Financial literacy, financial education.
Estate planning.
Financial planning, retirement planning.
Cash flow analysis. Which is kind of the question, but you would never, right? Can I buy a car? Yes, let me do a cash flow analysis on you. One thing that I think is interesting, just purely from a business development problem, specifically for business development, we struggle so much with business development in our industry. Some of the any real financial planner is not particularly good at marketing or business development. But imagine if you could really simply find a population of people who have a common question. This is how I normally describe niche marketing: is you find a group of people who have a common problem. The cool thing about the shortcut to finding a group of people with a common problem is an occupation. The cool thing about knowing an occupation and their common, I'm going to change from problem to question, is that you know where they hang out. You know what magazines they read. You know what podcasts they listen to. You know what conferences they go to. But imagine now the ability to market through questions. I was just thinking earlier, I don't know who does this, but all the big real estate companies put together a quarterly or a monthly magazine. It's in the local grocery store. You grab it. It's free. It's got all the listings. But imagine how much different an ad is that says, how much are you going to put down on your house? Right? I can help you answer that question fill out this, snap a picture of this QR code or go to this website, fill out this questionnaire, and we'll spend 30 minutes interpreting it for you. Or should I pay off my student loans? Right? Like if you start thinking about the questions that people want, it's very easy to start seeing in your head like, oh, there's a population of people who have that question. Right? And then if I can provide at least the framework quickly, which is one of the reasons why I'm so excited about the work at Elements, is like the idea of finally providing the framework quickly for my ability to answer those questions. That's a completely different business development model than what we've said before.
Yeah. It changes everything in terms of I just don't think there's pain outside of those questions. That's the pain that the customer will always feel, is something acute that day. Yeah. And it's interesting. It isn't just these it's not just this question about a car down payment. I mean, I could give you examples at the high end of the market.
Of course.
Around, oh my gosh, like it's my daughter's birthday today. Like, how much can I gift again? Or what's the 529 plan limits? Or what's my lifetime exemption?
Yeah, I'm selling my business.
Oh, I'm selling my business.
What are the tax implications?
What's this?
That?
Or, oh my gosh, we're in our cabin. Like, should we bring in like a third partner?
Yeah.
I can give you 50 questions today that I know apply across the entire market. Yeah. And you don't have to know the questions. You can market really well once you do know.
Yep.
But you can do it just face to face with somebody.
Sure. What questions do you have?
Hey, it's just while we're here together, say, I'd love to I'm just curious. Like, I'm always doing research on this, you know. Yep. What, do you have like a financial question that's been on the top of your mind?
Yep.
What is it? Just do that every time. People are going to be so grateful.
I've gotten I love that so much that it's like I write white papers just for fun now, right? Like just because I love the research.
Yeah.
And that question's a perfect. Like, what's the most pressing financial question on your mind right now?
Yeah.
Right. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Right. Super, super fun.
Gets people really engaged. So let's try to lean into business development a bit more, as I kind of wrapping up this episode. I think if we can lean into questions and then use those questions as a way to, like you've said, a righteous trick to bring people in a little bit deeper. The reason I built Elements into one scorecard and have the topics there that are there are because each of those topics actually matters in this holistic long-term conversation.
Yep.
You don't have to do them all today.
Yeah.
But you want the client to see that there's more to finances than just the one thing
that they're doing. Yeah.
But you don't want to get stuck doing all the things, or now your cost goes through the roof, and now you've got no freemium model, you've got no membership option. You've got no middle tier.
Get the knife out of my leg.
Get the knife out of my leg, and then when I will keep coming back to you for more healing.
Hey, when it's time, we should talk about that cholesterol problem.
Yeah, I mean, is it true? Like, I just feel like we're forcing too many people into an engagement that's just unnatural
and is not fit for purpose.
Yeah, it doesn't meet them where they're at.
Right sized for what they need.
All right, man. The mountain goat has been unleashed again. You're crossing the Wasatch Crest, and with all the wisdom. I love it, and excited to hear what you guys think about these episodes and what you learned about prospecting, the size of the pie, the real problem we're facing, the cost and efficiency problem. If you haven't checked out the one-page plan yet, it's live. It's amazing. Carl did some excellent work helping guide us to make sure we had, this built in a way that I think is fast and efficient and emphasizes the right things. We've actually generated more one-page plans in the last week on our platform than I'm not going to make any big, giant, bold statements, but I'm very surprised at how many hundreds of plans have been generated in the last 4 days. It's been really cool to see people getting to that statement of financial purpose with people really quick.
Yeah.
I've gotten, I don't know if it's a dozen texts and DMs and Twitter of people taking a picture of their statement of financial purpose with clients going like, here it is. I did mine. Yeah. Isn't it crazy that like sometimes just like a tool to enable someone to like actually take the action? Sure. It's just beautiful to see all those emotional jobs being serviced. So thanks again. Really appreciate it and look forward to another episode.
Yep. Amen, Reese.
Carry on.